Okay, I think that we can start. Yep. And we will see who will join during our webinar. So, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and guests, today we gathered at a time of unparalleled global challenges where humanity faces a complex of threats and demand urgent and which are needed for collective actions. The issue of sustainable development has never been more critical than it's today. And wars, natural disasters, harmful industrial practices in nations with weak governance and minimum enforcement of environmental standards have only worsened the situation. At the forefront of the challenges in Ukraine, a nation whose very fabric has been torn by military aggression, the war has not only devastated the economy, but it also left a lasting and profound impact on environment and society. Even before the war, Ukraine, like any other countries, has grappling with serious environmental issues like climate crisis, biodiversity loss, unsustainable practices that treated both people and nature. Now Ukraine faces an extraordinary task to rebuild and restore an economy and infrastructure destroyed by the war, while at the same time adhering its commitments to sustainable development as laid in our various international frameworks and programs. This is no small feat. Ukraine Green Recovery must ensure that only rebuilds, but also it does better, stronger, and more sustainable than before. And doing that, Ukraine needs an expertise and support from the global community. Thankfully, Ukraine's green recovery is already supported by a range of official adopted packages, programs, strategies. We have a lot of partnership in the world, and we have a lot of partnership with different countries and organizations. However, it is essential to bring in global expertise to fully realize the potential of building back better. It's actually the principle that guides Ukraine currently. So this is why today's discussion is so important and crucial. It is essential that we bring together all relevant stakeholders, both Ukrainian and international experts, for the honest and practical dialogue about what needs for green Ukraine recovery. So we are fortunate to have with us today a group of exceptional speakers. And let me introduce our speakers. Evgenia Afanasenko, who will moderate together with me this wonderful session. Evgenia Afanasenko is a principal environmental advisor at the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. She is an international ESG expert. Also, we have today Dr. Bogdan Vihor, CEO of WWF-Ukraine. We have Maria Malaya, first deputy head of the State Agency on Energy Efficiency and Energy Savings of Ukraine. We have today also Dr. Alexandr Sущenko, professor at Kyiv National Economic University and research fellow at Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research. And we have the Darіуш Prazek, Dr. Darіуш Prazek, Sustainability Advisory Service, London. So now I'm giving the word to Evgenia Afanasenko. Please, Evgenia.
Thank you very much, Alina. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you for everyone who has joined us today. I would like to open this panel by expressing our sincere gratitude to the UN for hosting this summit and for giving Ukraine's NGO a forum to share the story of Ukraine's fight, not only for our freedom, but also for our sustainable future. Since the first days of full-blown war in 2022, the 24 UN entities across Ukraine have been working alongside state authorities and local communities to address immediate humanitarian needs. And also, they contributed to help, they continued to help us pave the way to recovery, reconstruction, and development in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, promoting a gender-responsive, inclusive, and green recovery. The toll the war has taken on Ukraine is immense. According to the third Rapid Damage and Needs Assessment, as of December 2023, the total direct damage was estimated at $152 billion, with housing, transport, energy, and agriculture being the most significantly affected sectors. Economic losses due to disrupted services, increased operating costs, and loss of revenue amounted to $500 billion. Unfortunately, these numbers would be even higher by the end of this year. However, today we would like to focus our discussion on the opportunities that emerge for various players for working on rebuilding more resilient and sustainable Ukraine, and on the positive developments that have been taking place. Ukraine's recovery cannot wait. And we have to look beyond Ukraine's immediate needs and chart a credible path towards our sustainable future. Efforts aimed at reconstruction, supported by the international community, started already in 2022, with first Ukraine Recovery Conference taking place in July 22 in Lugano, Switzerland, recurring every year since. In the heart of Ukraine's recovery is the Build Back principle, which you will hear about many times during today's discussion, which offers an opportunity to rebuild stronger, safer, more resilient infrastructure and systems using sustainable and environmentally friendly methods and tools. Despite all the challenges posed by the ongoing war, there is a significant interest in investing in Ukraine. While large-scale investments are likely to occur after the war, private investments and microfinancing focusing on less risky regions create lots of opportunities. Overall, recovery and reconstruction needs are estimated currently at $486 billion over the next 10 years, with critical short-term and medium-term priorities. According to the most conservative estimates, it can catalyze up to $5.5 billion in private investments alone. There are financial facilities and guarantee programs that encourage foreign developers to invest in Ukraine, such as EU-Ukraine facility with its Ukraine investment framework, which will be covered later today during the first panel, multi-billion investment pledges from the World Bank, International Financial Corporation, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, coupled with risk sharing and guarantee programs. There are also development funds that were set up by other financial institutions and asset management companies. Despite significant hardships, Ukraine's economy rebounded in 2023 with 5.3% GDP growth, which is expected to make around 3.2% this year, with small and medium enterprises playing a key role. While investment risks remain due to the war, less than 20% of the Ukrainian territory is conflict affected, leaving substantial regions, especially in the west of the country, viable for businesses and investment opportunities, including impact investments. Moreover, Ukraine can play an important role in helping EU in achieving its sustainability objectives and EU Green Deal targets, with its ultimate carbon neutrality by 2050, as Ukraine has vast potential for green energy and sustainable fuels, food security and sustainable agriculture, as well as other sectors. Finance, people, and partnerships, these three elements are critical for green recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine. It requires cooperation between governmental institutions, international donors and investors, businesses, NGOs, scientific communities, and of course, civil society. And today, having with us the representatives of various institutions and stakeholder groups, we will discuss the threats and opportunities, strategic priorities, as well as financial and non-financial partnerships that can contribute to the sustainable recovery of Ukraine. And with that, I would like to open our first panel that will be dedicated to the discussions about energy efficiency, energy security, resilience, and circularity, and pose my first question to Maria as a representative of the state institution, state agency for energy efficiency. Maria, please tell us, how can Ukrainian government, investors, and businesses harness the opportunities for the Ukraine post-war recovery? And what is the role of your agency in this process?
Thank you for good question, and good afternoon for everyone. And you know, the war has brought Ukraine extraordinary threats and challenges, particularly for our energy infrastructure, which is essentially the lifeblood for our economy and our country. But challenges also brought opportunities. And from our point of view, first and foremost is an opportunity to change our approaches to energy supply and build fundamentally new energy system which will be distributed and consumer oriented. I mean a distributed energy generation system. Today, the government is taking exceptional measures to develop this area, from removing regulatory customs and tax barriers, and launching state financial program for support distributed generation. For example, our agency, one of our responsibility is development of high efficiency cogeneration in Ukraine. And today we have exemption from excise tax for electricity produced by qualified cogeneration units. We have exemption from import duty and VAT for cogeneration equipment. An additional licensing requirements for heat production by cogeneration units up to 5 megawatt have been cancelled, and producers for commission house gas power cogeneration units have been simplified. You know, we try to do something like this for biomethane production and for development biofuels production. The second opportunity which can be used by government and for business, of course, is energy efficiency. Because I think everyone knows that the cheapest kilowatt is one has not been used. And today we try to implement all EU requirements. And as you know, this last year and this year, EU adopted two new revised directives about one about energy efficiency and the second one about energy performance for building. And both of these documents have wide requirements, especially for business. What I mean, according to the update energy efficiency directive, there are more requirements for introduction energy system, mandatory energy management system in industry or business. And for Ukraine, it's very important today to be prepared to implement this obligation as soon as possible, because EU obligation for enterprises is very low energy consumption level. It's about 85 terajoule per year, and if enterprise spend and consume this amount of energy, they should have energy management system. For Ukraine, it is about small and medium enterprises. So it's very important to start implement energy management system today. And as the last but not least opportunity, of course, it is a decarbonization, because today there are no alternatives to low carbon development. And in this process, our reconstruction, improving energy efficiency and development, distributed generation and usage of renewables, we have a unique chance to decarbonize our economy. And in the context, in the framework of implementation of the CBAM and other global carbon regulation mechanism, this seems to be very significant, advantage for the country, for all country, and for every business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you for this detailed response. I will come back to you with additional question. But for now, I would like to turn my second question to Alexandr Sущenko. Alexander, as a researcher, can you please tell us the following? When developing the post-conflict recovery strategy for Ukraine, how can we or developers in principle combine the objectives and principles of resilience to the non-financial risks and sustainability, and whether we should rely on build back better or build forward back principle while enhancing resilience?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Maybe I will start with just providing some insights into the difference between building back better and building forward better, because everybody is talking about only BBB approach, let's put it that way. But this is like a slightly outdated one, because it relates to, let's say, the risks which we've been like facing before the COVID. And once the COVID let's say occurred and we've been going through this crisis, we realized that it's not enough to deal with the vulnerabilities and improving our, let's say, ability to bounce back if something similar is going to occur. It's more efficient to deal with the risk, and as the COVID crisis demonstrated, it's important to deal with the risk, to do like proactively. Otherwise, it could last endlessly, and then we won't be able to see like the light at the end of the tunnel. So this is the difference between building back better and building forward better. So if we want to be more prepared to similar, let's say, challenges as we have in Ukraine right now, we should think about like the risks and how to deal with those risks before going to the next similar crisis. So this is like just on a nutshell difference, and the urgency and the necessity to look beyond just improving vulnerabilities and thinking rather of improved risk management. This is the question to all of us. Do we want to have this resilience based on the principle of sustainable development principles, or let's say based on the principles of business as usual. So which means we're just rebuilding everything to the level which was before the outbreak of the war, so to speak. Just let's have the Soviet Union 2.0, or let's use, let's say, more progressive, more advanced sustainable development principles, and let's bring more sustainable and green aspects into our future. The answer obviously is in favor of sustainable development principles, because this, let's say, allows us to build the bridge to the financial market, because as we see on the financial market, especially in the EU, and EU is our main financial and trade partner as for now, and will be in the next decades, obviously. So everything what's happening now there is strictly connected to sustainable development principles, and to ESG as let's say, as an approach on, let's say, narrowing down those global indicators to a specific economic agent. So for us, for Ukraine, the answer is clear. We need to be more resilient. We need to be able to manage the risks in a more efficient, in a better way. And also, if we want to have private funds mobilized for this purpose, we need to take care of this sustainable development principles, and especially consider all these new directives and regulations in this area, to make sure that all investors, private investors will be looking towards our plans and our real actions on the ground. So I will stop here, and yeah, that's the floor over to you.
Thank you, Alexander. Actually, I don't want you to stop here, because I think many of us have heard about this build forward better principle, because you are right, it's a new one, but we're still operating the build back better principle. And thank you indeed for educating us about this new approach, because I understand from your response that not only we have to look to think about current vulnerabilities, but build future-proof resilient systems based on the risk approach. I wonder if you can maybe share some practical examples where this principle has already been implemented. I know you're a researcher, you might not have the full picture of what's happening on the ground, but out of curiosity, if you may have such examples, like off the cuff, to share with us, it would be really appreciated.
Yeah, actually, as I told you before, the COVID crisis brought this topic, let's say, to our agenda, and actually UN and UNDP, let's put it that way, to be more precisely, is using this principle or this approach towards recovery since at least 3 or 4 years in different countries, and it proved to be a more advanced and more let's say, progressive principle. Let's maybe think exactly how to let's say integrate this principle into our daily activities, and go beyond just like implementing and developing agencies on the UN level. So actually, if you go to the internet, you can find different program documents of UNDP and in different countries, and they're actually based on this principle. And let's say the response to the COVID crisis was actually let's say the starting point to think about the crisis in a slightly different way.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And now we turn to Dr. Prazek, an expert in circular economy. Darіуш, tell us, please, why do we need to embrace the principles of circular economy, and what would be the consequences if we don't?
Thank you, Evgenia. Good afternoon or good morning, depending where you are. It's a good question, but there is a straightforward answer to this. We have to embrace circular economy because we have no other choice. There is no other opportunity. We have to go circular. And those who will understand that we have to go circular will have advantage, competitive advantage in implementing circularity measures. But to be precise, why we are facing this issue that we have to go circular? We are currently using, as a planet, we are using, depending on the source, 6 to 8 times more than the planet can regenerate. If we continue doing this, we will just exhaust our planet, and as a humanity, we may have problems in surviving. Moreover, in particular, we are lacking or exhausting certain resources, particularly resources which are used for modern digital platform technologies. These, depending on the estimates, could be already exhausted in something like 3, 4, 5 years. What does it mean? It means that unless we develop different paradigm in terms of addressing our needs, we have to actually start thinking how to use these resources wisely, how to recover them, how to reuse them. And these are the principles of the circular economy. Circular economy is something that when we created certain goods, products, we have to create them in a way that they last, that they could be repaired, renewed, regenerated. And I want to go back to this resource issue. If we don't preserve these valuable resources, particularly those which are used for digital platforms, we are going to face significant issues in terms of supply. This will cause fluctuation of prices. This can lead to imposing trade barriers. This can lead to disruption of the supply chain. These are all the elements which, if we don't embrace circular economy, we actually are going to have trouble. Moreover, as we are talking, we are having this discussion at the UN forum, I wanted to sort of relate to sustainable development goals. Many countries, practically all countries, signed up to these goals, including Ukraine. And among these 17 goals, 12 of them will be significantly progressed if we actually implement the measures of circular economy. So this is a reason that we have to go for in terms of Ukraine's commitment to global issues. There is also a commitment as a candidate country negotiating your measures which you have to implement for joining the European Union. We have the whole package of Green Deal. And this Green Deal, within Green Deal, green taxonomy, you have actually a number of measures which call for circularity, which call, there are a number of actions, being plastics, being metals in electronic, they call for implementing measures which actually target a circular economy. So to make a long story short, we have to simply adhere to our commitments, international commitments, to commitments to the European family, but we also have to preserve the economy. Now, it is also important, as we mentioned, the previous speaker mentioned, building things better. This is the chance that we can implement the design and models which actually allow for better, building better, which will allow for using our resources wisely. So circular economy is not only Some people think it is just about recycling of waste. No, in true circular economy, we have no waste at all. We design things that we can, they can last for long. We design them that we can use parts of them, that we can regenerate them, we can repair. Then there is also a very important element. These elements of regeneration, repair, reusing creates social opportunities. Social opportunity, that means it creates jobs, different jobs than we have now. All these workshops for repair, regeneration, reverse logistics, which means taking from consumers to these repair shops. This is a social element which can also be implemented, which will give employment to the subsequent generations when we implement these measures. So you have a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of opportunities in terms of using resources wisely. We have opportunities of creating social element jobs. You have also a necessity of preserving the raw materials, resources, and keeping their value as long as possible. So you have all these elements, and this is the answer why we need to do this, and the consequences could be quite dire. So I'll stop at this stage, and we can get back to other issues later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're now actually moving to the second part of our discussion on energy efficiency, energy resilience, and circularity. And I would like all of you not to limit yourself and share as much information as and as much feedback from your work in other countries, your research work, that would help us and actually all the people working on Ukraine recovery to use this practical experience, practical knowledge and tools in developing very specific restoration and recovery programs. So with that, I would like to pose my second question to Maria, and the question will be about the instruments for the stimulation of energy efficiency improvements in Ukraine. What are these instruments, Maria, and how can they be used by different players, developers, users?
Thank you. First of all, the main instrument, I think, it's legislation. And as you know, Ukraine did pretty a lot in implementation energy efficiency legislation. But it is not enough to have just a legislation, and we really need a financial mechanism for meet today requirements of our country. Since 2070, we have an energy efficiency fund, but they work with special target group. It's OSBB. It's a multi-level houses, and it is not enough because we have a lot of needs for our municipality and especially for our business. And last year, at the beginning of 2023, Parliament adopted the new law which established the State Decarbonization and Energy Transformation Fund. This fund operates on the polluter pays principle and fulfilled by CO2 tax. And this June, our government approved the procedure for spending money from this fund. And the fund's resources, it is 1.5 billion hryvnias per year. It's sustainable resource, and it will be distributed among state financial company, Decarbonization Fund of Ukraine, and spending for low rate loans from 9% or 7% for equipment from local producers. And it could be used by business, all business, not just SMEs, and municipalities, and including ESCA companies, utility companies, all of them. And last week we start project selection. And the second program of the fund is a program for banks, and it's banks to reduce loan costs for business and municipalities for the same purpose. And the funding according to these programs could be used for industry modernization project, distributed generation, renovation, renewables, EPC contract, etc. All projects which meet to energy efficiency and decarbonization targets. And this fund is one of new instrument to implement our goals according our new national energy and climate plans, which adopted by Cabinet of Ministry on June 25, on June this year. And this plan has pretty ambitious goals for Ukraine, and it was developed in accordance with EU regulation, and within the process of gaining EU membership of Ukraine. And this plan contains five strategic key directions. First of all, decarbonization, including the development of renewables. Second, energy efficiency. Third, energy security, internal energy market, and of course, research, innovation, and competitiveness. And among the main objectives of national energy and climate plans are 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emission compared to 1990 levels, achieving a 27% of renewables in energy mix, in final energy consumption. And then primary energy consumption should be not more than 72 million TOE, and final energy consumption 42 million TOE. And one more is cumulative amount of energy saving in the final use for 2021 till 2030 should be at least 16.4 million TOE. And we have a new goal, energy saving for government building. It's accordance to EU directive, and this energy saving per year should be at least 24.9 gigawatt per year. And as you know, NEC is similar for our national action plan for energy efficiency till 2030, but having new goals, as I say, especially about public sector leadership in energy efficiency. And you know, public sector today, just the government level spent about 16 billion hryvnias per year for energy consumption. So we have very ambitious goals and we have a lot to do.
Thank you very much, Maria, for this very important and indeed very ambitious update in terms of achieving our Ukrainian climate goals and energy efficiency goals. So I understand we are firmly on the track to our carbon neutrality. It's still 2060, right? Not 2050, but I hope the implementation of this strategy and this plan will somewhat expedite decarbonization of Ukraine and achievement of our climate and energy goals. Thank you very much. I think this information was indeed very new for many of our listeners, so I'm really grateful for such a detailed summary. And we are moving again to Alexander. And again, question about the financial mechanism. We have briefly mentioned in our introduction the Ukraine facility as one of the tools for financing Ukraine's recovery. Alexander, could you please talk us through in some more detail about the facility and specifically tell us what is the place and role of such aspects as resilience, ASDE, and building forward better principles in the Ukraine facility?
Yeah, thank you for your question. As we have already mentioned before, the needs for recovery, they're exceeding already 500 billions of US dollars. It's only the, let's say, very preliminary and rough estimations regarding the damage. But if we want to rebuild the economy and the country better, it would cost, I mean, 2 or 3 times more, obviously. For this purpose, Ukraine facility is considered as one of the tools because the overall amount is very limited. It's only 50 billion, and let's say the biggest share of this amount will be dedicated to financial aid and will be landed on the public accounts, which means for the private sector and for let's say reconstruction activities on the ground. I assume and let's say it's my fear that it will be a very limited amount dedicated to this purpose. And the second pillar, which exactly about the investments, it's only about 10 billion, roughly 10 billion, slightly less. And it says that this amount should be provided as, let's say, as a leverage, as a tool to mobilize more. Let's say that the document says, or the EU says that ideally we should mobilize about 40 billion. It would be good to have such amount like as a result, because let's say the facility itself is covered by this multi-year financial program of the EU. It's till 2027, I think. So we have some time, but it's not enough as we see, because first of all we have to implement some enabling conditions, so to speak, let's put it that way, in our country. Otherwise, we could rely, and this is exactly what is happening. We could rely on our state banks, and those institutions. They are already elaborating some products which are linked to this amount. But I think it will be very limited amount of money, and the amount of funds available will be not enough to cover all these investment needs for our economy and for our country. So with that being said, we have to do a lot before we could, let's say, use this, let's say, second pillar as a leverage. It's not only about thinking about innovative instruments for mobilizing funds or resources. It's about, again, it's about creating conditions for investors to be sure that they will be ready to provide the additional funds and exactly to use this limited EU money, public money, but also the money of the taxpayers in the EU to have this blended finance mobilized as a result. It's not only about incorporating those innovative instruments into Ukrainian legislation, as we did with the green bonds. They are finally part of our decrees and specific regulations of National Stock Exchange Commission, as for example. It goes beyond this. It's about non-financial reporting. It's about again, it's about taxonomy for environmentally sustainable projects and so on. It's a huge list which could be taken from this action plan to the EU Green Deal, which is again already in hand, so which could be used as a basis. But obviously we have to take into account our specific conditions within the country and make sure that everything what will be transponded or transferred into Ukrainian legislation from the EU legislation will be somehow adapted to our reality. And again, the road is long, but we have to start at some point of time. Otherwise, those 10 billion euros as the second investment pillar of the Ukraine facility, they will remain only like a very nice drop on the hard stone.
And where do we stand, or where the Ukrainian government stands in terms of delivering their part of the promise or developing this program to enable the use of the Ukraine facility? If I'm not mistaken, I have seen it published already for the 3 pillars, but has the actual implementation started? And if there are any barriers to that implementation, if you could share with us.
I think we, let's say the government of Ukraine prepared a very nice document, which was well received by European Commission, highly appreciated. But now you're completely right. Now we have to think about the implementation part. So far we received like 12 billion from this pie. Mostly it's financial aid which landed in Ukrainian budget, and this money will not be dedicated to investment. So it will be only like a tool to balance let's say income and outcome sides of the budget. Again, as I mentioned it before, as I know, and as it looks right now, Ukrainian state banks, they developed already and they're working continuously on developing new products based on this funds provided from the EU side to activate this second pillar and to make it work. But again, they have quite nice amount of liquidity in their hands, but it's not enough. Again, we should think about how to invite DFIs, maybe private banks to let's say to also step in and to develop something which could be used as an add-on to this very nice and very necessary let's say first and very small but very important part of this leverage mechanism. So again, we have a lot of things to do. If we will be only relying on our internal capacities, we will end up with very limited, let's say, multiplication effect as a result. If we will go broadly and we will invite more actors to this discussion, maybe we could have something solid as a result, but let's see.
I can confirm that the multilateral development banks who are supposed to co-finance or provide blended finance on the second pillar are also looking at these opportunities. So Ukraine is not alone, but obviously Ukrainian government has to do their homework in order to be able to attract that finance and unlock the second pillar for the private developers and private investors. Thank you very much, Alexander. Thank you for such a detailed answer. And my last question in this round is to Dr. Prazek. So going back to the circular economy, what could be the specific measures to be implemented in Ukraine to accelerate the transition to circularity as a component of rebuilding the country on the sustainable principles?
Thank you very much, Eugenia, for this question. And I would like to relate to Dr. Sущenko's statement that we can use a lot what has been done for others, but we have to also be very specific because Ukraine is a unique country and we have to have measures which are specifically tailored. So what do we need to do? We need, first of all, to know where we are. So we need to know how circular is Ukraine. We don't know exactly how in various areas circularity plays its role. We know that about 7% of waste is recycled. The rest ends up in landfills. Only from 2022, from June, Ukraine has got the waste management law, which is mirroring European Union approach. But in terms of circularity, you need to find where are the real opportunities. And the best is when you have a kickstart, when you can identify low-hanging fruit industries where actually you can do quite a lot and quite quickly to increase the circularity. And OECD did such an assessment. We are talking here about manufacturing, we are talking metal processing, food processing industries. These are those where opportunities present themselves. There is also a big elephant in the room, which is construction industry. Construction, which there is a lot of rubble, there is a lot of deconstruction waste. There is opportunity to construct better. So these are sort of elements, these are industries which are probably the best target for circularity measures. So as I said, you have to know where you are. So the best is to map circularity for Ukraine. As Ukraine is a large country, maybe you have to be regionally specific. This could be region by region in terms of mapping the measures. Then there is a need to share certain view, to share the roadmap to circularity, agree with various stakeholders where we want to be, how we need to go there. Most countries, the first country which developed such a map was Finland. They actually redeveloped it later. Most people are learning from them. They did pretty good stuff, but as I said, you have to also be specific for Ukraine. So most stipulate that the recovery, the implementation of the measures should be based on 4 pillars. And these pillars are circular innovation, circular culture, circular regulation, and circular regions. And let me just say briefly a few words about each. Innovation is the whole driver, the whole design. I already mentioned during my first opportunity to say something that we need to think, to design, so we design out ways. But who should be doing this designing, implementing the measures? Obviously, this is the industry designing institutes. So we need to help them in terms of creating some kind of innovation centers, center of excellence, where there will be access to technology, to know-how, but also how to structure projects to get financing, to develop business plan. So we need this sort of incubation advisory type of services, particularly targeting small and medium-sized enterprises. Large enterprises, they normally know how to go about this. They have their own R&D departments. SMEs are helpless, so we have to help them. So this is the innovation. In terms of circular culture, we have to educate people. We have to educate them at various levels, not only at the university level. You have to target primary schools, kindergartens, to actually imprint the circular thinking, how to behave, and within and what is circular, how to actually ensure that we preserve the value. But I wanted to raise, as we are talking at the UN forum, a very important aspect. In circular culture, gender is a very important element. Very often, these are the ladies of the house who are deciding on purchases, on going certain directions. Women have incredibly important role in implementing the measures relating to circular culture. Then briefly on circular regulation. Circular regulation is the driver. This legislation, which was enacted in June 2022, has certain elements, as it is mirroring EU, but the extended producer's responsibility, which is a framework asking producers to take their product when they finish their useful cycle, to do something with them, to take them back, to reprocess, to regenerate. This is at the very beginning. This needs to be implemented as quickly as possible, and it should embrace as a large number of sectors as possible. Normally, these are electronic, these are batteries, these are oils, lubricants. Yes, but go as far as possible and learning from others' examples. And then circular regions, you know what it means? It means that we have to look at the country from the specific perspective. We have to look from the perspective, what is in a certain region. If you look at Bessarabia, it will be agribusiness, it will be agri-processing. So these are these elements, you know, which you have to take. The measures which we adopt have to take care of the contribution of the regions to the economy and their needs, and then implementing measures. And now in terms of actions which could be taken, first of all, use public funds, for example, green public procurement, where circularity measures, when the life cycle analysis can play a role. Remove subsidies which encourage linear practices and go into circularity. Then, you know, develop capacity building. Capacity building, it works well when you develop it for targeted audiences, for decision makers, for policy makers, for teachers, for small businesses. So, you know, for these targeted audiences, try to focus this capacity. You need advisors, you need consultants. Then when you progress, you need to measure. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can adopt the measures which have been adopted by the Commission and many member states, but you have to measure your progress. So you have to develop metrics. Then you have to also align national priorities. Align in terms, you cannot have circular economy being promoted at the cost of other commitments on other issues. And then finally, last but not least, I would like to stress that all what we do, we need to have social element at the back of our heads. You cannot progress a policy without thinking about social consequences. Thank you with this.
Thank you very much, Darіush. When listening to you and your suggestion about the public funds, I was just relating to what Maria has said earlier about that a decarbonization fund, which is replenished using the money from the polluters and then redistributing it to financing energy efficiency. Would you think of something similar for financing circularity?
Absolutely, but first, sometimes it's better to look at this, not to provide incentives to activities which are actually damaging or are linear. So yes, a similar fund could be created, but I would use it. I would actually look at the existing funds and change their priorities. And also, I haven't mentioned it maybe specifically, it's also important how you ask economic entities operating in the economy to report on the issues. If you ask them to report, as we all are talking about various non-financial reporting of issues, when you ask specifically to report on circularity measures, it is a trigger which actually makes people think and come up with ideas which are conducive to better performance.
Okay, thank you very much. I had just one more question, but I think when you touched upon the regional pillar, you kind of answered the question, and it was about whether Ukraine can rely on the experience of Finland, which you presented like a kind of a role model in this process, or maybe experience of some other countries could be relevant for Ukraine.
A very good question, because actually we should use what really works in various circumstances. So, for example, you know, one of the best roadmaps from smaller countries, it's Slovenia, and measures they are implementing. These, in the mountainous regions, small country, mountainous, with access to sea, in the sort of Carpathian areas of Ukraine, could be easily implemented. Not all Scandinavian patterns would be suitable. So I would encourage to look at various good examples, and look, we are all learning here. We are all learning in terms that the first approaches to circularity appeared in 2017-18. So we are all on a learning curve, but there is also a plethora of information. Not everyone went optimally in the right direction, so there were mistakes made. Ukraine has a chance for a leapfrogging, for learning from these mistakes and taking the best. So, you know, you need experts who would sort of look into this and try to bring to the country what is the best for the future, rebuilding better.
Thank you very much, Darіush, and thank you all the panelists for a very, very rich discussion. I think we all greatly enjoyed this conversation, and we have definitely taken notes from your presentations to elaborate and to produce a joint paper following this summit. And with that, we can conclude our first panel and move to the second panel that will be devoted to biodiversity.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think I will take over the moderation of this panel, because due to some technical issues, we should make this switch, so to speak. So actually, this second panel. Yeah, so the second panel, I would like to invite representatives from EBRD and WWF to discuss, let's say, the role and the damage caused by the military aggression to environment and biodiversity. I think we all saw these devastating pictures of the destroyed Hovka Dam, and also pictures from the battlefields where the forest and the surface was erased and burned down to the ground, so which caused actually huge damage and consequences, negative consequences to our environment and biodiversity. So let me start first with Dr. Bogdan Vihor, the head of the WWF in Ukraine, by asking you what's, let's say, in your opinion, what's the damage, what's the extent to which the current military aggression was caused by the Russians and by this all military activities to the environment and to the biodiversity. So what's, in your opinion, what's the extent?
Yeah, not easy question to answer because first of all, we could see direct consequences of military aggression against Ukrainian environment. For example, if we could talk about the forest ecosystem, near 3 million hectares of Ukrainian forest were somehow affected by war or military activities. Near 100,000 hectares of Ukrainian forest are under active battlefields, or 500,000 hectares of forest are currently mined, or near 100,000 forests fully burned because of military action. And of course, this affected directly biodiversity because the habitat for crucial species was affected. But of course, the war is also affected global environmental security due to carbon dioxide emission, which may cause different climate catastrophe and cataclysm across the globe, but also affected not only biodiversity, but local communities, especially vulnerable communities and women, sensitive for biodiversity sources produced by forest ecosystem. So, and I could provide you another example of another impact of war. We had bison population in the Kiev surroundings in the Zalesia National Nature Park, and those territory was under Russian occupation for several months. So the general bison herd before the occupation was near 21 individuals, but after 2 months of occupation, only 14 females left. So automatically, this means that these rare species listed in a Red Data Book of Ukraine are automatically sentenced to extinction because the nearest male is 300 kilometers away from this bison herd. And I could also provide another example of direct impact of war on biodiversity, which is the Kakhovka Dam disaster, because there was a very rare species called marble polecat, counted near 100 individuals only living in the ecosystem downstream of Kakhovka Dam. But after the dam disaster, the habitats on which species inhabit was fully destroyed and swapped out by water into the Black Sea. So now, because of military action and the security situation, it is impossible to figure out if any of those very rare individuals of these rare animals survive or still inhabit this area. And actually, this is basic consequences of the war and some direct impacts, but I would highlight that it will be indirect impact of the war because a lot of unexploded ordnance left in Ukrainian forest, and a lot of unexploded ordnance contaminate Ukrainian soil and water, which put under threat, for example, global food security. Because Ukraine produced food to feed 400 million people in terms of kilocalories, having population of only 40 million people. So this is how we lost those natural capacity to produce food and guarantee food security for the whole world. And biodiversity in these aspects is crucial because biodiversity support resilience of natural ecosystem and support to the high quality ecosystem services provided to those ecosystems. That is why it is strongly crucial to support a high level of biodiversity, to support natural process which help to restore natural ecosystem in natural way. But it is another topic.
Yeah, thank you for this input and very valuable contribution to this question. Maybe like a small follow-up question from my side, just out of curiosity. You mentioned that let's say this after the Russians, they destroyed the Kakhovka Dam. We lost a lot of valuable, let's say, resources, and biodiversity was affected a lot. But maybe from my point of view, if we consider right now this very tough choice between rebuilding the dam and living as it is, from your point of view, what kind of factors should we take into account while making this decision? Is it very strict and simple, or it's very complicated decision?
I would say from one point of view, it is easy, and from another point of view, it is complicated. And what I would highly recommend the decision makers to consider how the water from Kakhovka Dam was used, and it was used for irrigated agriculture, how efficient it was. It was used for the housing sector, how efficient those water usage was for the housing sector. It was used for industry in Ukraine, and how efficient those water was used for the industry, and the water was used for energy production. So, and it generates some amount. So if we need to invest $5 billion in Kakhovka Dam reconstruction, it's one option. But if we invest in transforming a full agricultural system of Ukraine, which correspond to the modern climate changes and to support future world food security, it's another option. How we promote further renewables development like wind power or solar power, or how we could transform, for example, Ukrainian industry to correspond to the industry standard 4.0. It should be considered by decision making for taking final decision. And of course, environmental impact assessment should be also done properly for any reconstruction on recovery project, considering another sustainability criteria.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your opinion. It's very important to take into account, let's say, what's the experts are saying on this and suggesting on this issue, but not taking very quick and very simple decisions as an answer to very complex and complicated questions. So let me just pass the floor to Evgenia by asking, in your opinion, or maybe like looking back to your activities at EBRD, how you and your institutions, your institution are evaluating and considering biodiversity protection and restoration activities in your activities. What's the role of this aspect while making investment decisions, and how, let's say, what's the value of this component is?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Alexander. Indeed, our financial institution, EBRD, as well as other key international financial institutions, or MDBs, play a very important role in setting up the highest standards for proper management of biodiversity-related risks, in addition to providing financial resources. MDBs have mainstreamed environmental sustainability considerations, including nature, obviously, into all their policies and operations through the implementation of the environmental and social policies, standards, guidance notes, and other reference documents. Every project that seeks financing from MDBs is a subject to a comprehensive environmental and social due diligence, which also includes biodiversity assessment that should inform all the parties, including the wider public, through public consultations of potential risks. The main objective is ideally to avoid, to the extent possible, any negative impacts on biodiversity and ecosystems, and if not, then to minimize, mitigate, and offset them to achieve no net loss of biodiversity. And in some cases, in cases of critical habitats, net gains of biodiversity. Final design of the project should incorporate all the mitigation measures, and they should be in line with the best international practices on sustainable biodiversity management. Unfortunately, not every project will ultimately get financing from MDBs, as some projects could cause unrepairable damage to nature and so could not be financed. This approach is essentially consistent with one of the EU taxonomy criteria, do no significant harm, which entails assessing whether an investment into some economic activity which contributes substantially and positively to an environmental or social objective does not at the same time have a negative effect or significantly harms any other environmental and social objectives. Therefore, it is important for the project proponents to include biodiversity considerations into the project concept from the very start and look at various alternatives. For instance, project location away from the sensitive area, or implementation of biodiversity-friendly design, or use of new technologies that mitigate and minimize the risks, and such like. While impact mitigation is of course necessary, it is certainly not sufficient to reverse the trend of biodiversity loss, and MDBs are enhancing focus on net gains of biodiversity and nature positive activities. While biodiversity-related standards and requirements have been included into the policies of MDBs for a very long time, they all also undergo periodic amendments to reflect ever-growing need in protecting and restoring of ecosystems, as well as regulatory, scientific, and technology advancements. MDBs also take into consideration emerging European and international regulations, sustainability standards, and reporting requirements. I have already mentioned EU taxonomy and its objective number 4 that has to do with protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. Also, recent corporate sustainable reporting directive and related reporting standards that include, amongst other, standards on reporting on impacts on biodiversity and ecosystems and habitat preservation and restoration. And this is not to mention other standards like GRI, other nature-related financial and non-financial disclosure requirements. However, these requirements are equally relevant for commercial banks or asset management companies, regardless of whether they co-finance projects with MDBs or act as a sole financier. Investments in companies with a high exposure to biodiversity risks may pose a financial risk to a financing institution. Hence, they are interested in providing funds to the companies with good nature-related and biodiversity performance. Also, MDBs collaborate globally to create a framework for nature-related financing. For example, at COP26, MDBs issued a joint statement on nature, people, and planet, which is targeted at tackling of the drivers of nature loss by fostering the so-called nature positive investments. And 2 years later at COP28, my bank, EBRD, has launched its approach to nature, which envisages, amongst others, investments into nature by exploring new models for financing in 3 main areas: blue and green infrastructure, pollution prevention and circular economy, and nature governance. One of the pertinent topics for MDBs is approach to nature capital and ecosystem services. Biodiversity creates flow of ecosystem services which benefit and create value for our businesses and society, and through through this, the financial institutions are also influenced. Speaking about Ukraine, as of 2023, the value of ecosystem services in our country was estimated at around $19 billion annually. And globally, this number is making trillions. If I'm not mistaken, the total value of ecosystem services globally is about $100 trillion. Also in Ukraine, there is currently a concept of ecosystem services in the environmental regulations, and we as MDPs are keeping an eye on this development and are looking for the opportunities to contribute through our policy dialogue activities. So when we're talking about the restoration and ecosystems in Ukraine, which suffered from damage, we don't see it necessarily as a cost item, because investments into biodiversity and ecosystems create value for both businesses and societies. And here the MDBs like ours play a critical role in both channeling the financial flows and setting up standards for biodiversity and nature protection and restoration.
Yeah, thank you for that. Maybe just small follow-up question from my side, just out of curiosity, because obviously we could deal with biodiversity protection and restoration in two ways. Like one, to avoid some negative impact from our activities, but another way is maybe to develop new business models where this topic is the core. Maybe from your perspective, from your let's say from your view, what's happening within the EBRD and how this trend is looking. Are there any positive signs of increasing the number of applications where exactly biodiversity protection is the core of the new business model, or is there only this stream where we're trying to avoid this negative impact on biodiversity?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I have partly answered it when I said it is not enough to mitigate impact. We are looking more and more at nature positive investments. By that, we mean a new approach. Well, it's actually not new, because the principle of net gains of biodiversity has been embedded into our policy for a long time. But now we are providing more and more resources to create these net gains as opposed to no net loss through the project that we are financing. What does it mean in practice? Not only do we have to preserve nature and minimize or avoid impacts, but we actually aim to create additional gains to increase the number of flora, fauna, and other species, to improve habitats, to create favorable conditions for ecosystem, to enhance ecosystem services, because price of ecosystem services has been underestimated. It was not taken into consideration when developing financial model for different projects, right? Like many years ago, price of carbon and other air emissions was just a fracture of its actual value, right? Now with all the carbon taxes, with CBAM, these actual costs were embedded. Now we are doing the same with value of the ecosystem services. And the novel project I have touched upon, the approach to nature that has been developed and is being implemented by EBRD, also includes several three pillars. This is actually the financing. Second pillar is a policy dialogue. We work with the government, in governmental institutions. We work with NGOs, like including WWF. We work with on technical cooperation, providing donors money for the developers for the development of nature positive initiatives, like creation of those or implementation of those measures that I have already mentioned.
Yeah, thank you for that. So obviously the role of MDBs is crucial in this case because they're providing financial resources, especially for such countries as Ukraine, with huge political risk and very unfavorable conditions for private investors. But coming back to Dr. Bogdan Vihor, and maybe you could, from your perspective, let's say, provide your opinion on the role which is being played by nature protection organizations currently. Is this what they should do, or that there is still place or space for more, let's say, inputs from their side? So over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So actually, I would like to turn back to the role of civil society, and to some extent, civil society could be watchdogs, but not necessarily, not always. There is another good role of civil society organization, especially now in Ukraine, because Ukrainian state authorities, despite they are doing all their best in their efforts, faced with limited capacity and lack of resources. So I see here a unique space for civil society organization like WWF-Ukraine and others to be partners for Ukrainian state authorities and help them. Because there was a problem in Ukraine which existed before the war. There was issues and problems which were created during the war and will be created in the future. And there is issues which will be escalating further. So, and it's like the different variety of challenges Ukrainian authority facing on, especially in each sector, and environmental sector, biodiversity conservation, it's not exception because it is quite complicated. I mentioned earlier about the impact of war on biodiversity, but you could keep in mind that Ukraine lost 25% of its territory, or near 25% of Ukrainian territory was heavily polluted by mines and exploded ordnance. We lost biodiversity, but also we lost fecund land, which produced food for feed roughly 100 million people. And in this extent, we are facing this very challenging situation to restore those land and turn them back into normal usage. And here there is huge space for, of course, demining or removing unexploded ordnance. But from another side, there is great space for implementation nature-based solutions and implementation of bankable project, which could be interesting for investor to further elaborate development of these territories and also those territories which was not affected by military action. And in this regard, WWF-Ukraine, for example, or another NGOs could provide different varieties of expertise. For example, we could closely collaborate with different partners and stakeholders. For example, with the international financial institution like EBRD and others to help them provide expertise and do so-called homework for the international support to make a special condition for international funding project. For example, let's say about the greening transport infrastructure. So in this regard, for example, WWF with partnership with Ukrainian state authorities could prepare criteria for sustainable linear transport infrastructure development, which consider biodiversity interests, inclusivity interests, gender interests, climate mitigation and adaptation interest, and another legislation requirements like those do not significant harm to nature, etc. And of course, we could work on the legislation needed to make this investment case highly attractable. After this homework in support to Ukrainian government and ministry done, such big players like financial institution, for example, EBRD, could easily fund such type of project, like invest in linear transport infrastructure, because these correspond to their sustainability criteria, and there is low risk to this project to be funded from different institutional like EBRD, for example. So it could be one case how we could collaborate and support Ukrainian decision makers and authorities. It might be another cases like providing expertise and especially international expertise to transfer expertise which is abroad, because, for example, WWF is international organization, and we could explore those experience from another countries which was affected by war or another conflicts, or we could export those experience for those countries which was affected by natural disasters and how they recovered, and do this recovery project for Ukraine in much more faster and sustainable way, considering engagement of different and international players. Thank you.
Yeah, huge thanks for your input. Yeah, obviously, all the key stakeholders, they should collaborate and work together to facilitate or enable green or sustainable and resilient for recovery in Ukraine. Huge thanks once again to all of you for time, I think. And we have to close this panel, and I think I have to pass the floor to Yevgeny once again. You have to continue and to proceed to the next panel. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexander. Yes, we are at our final panel where, Alexander, you will be unfortunately the own panelist due to the technical issues on Alina's side, but you are obviously more than qualified to answer all the education-related questions as a researcher and as a major contributor into the development of the sustainability program for Ukrainian student community. I have essentially two questions to you, one general and one more specific. So generally, we know that environmental and sustainability education is not very much developed, and not so many Ukrainian higher institutions or university provide such curriculum. In your mind, what kind of skills are required to support resilient and sustainable recovery of Ukraine?
Actually, this is maybe the key challenge, not only for Ukraine but also for other countries, even despite the fact that it's a very fancy and well-known higher education institutions, countries in the US, in the UK, and also in Australia, they are offering such opportunities to get this knowledge and to be skilled and prepared for this, let's say, for our current challenges. But unfortunately, the demand is high, and those institutions and what they are offering is not enough, and there is still space for other universities and business schools to offer something valuable and something which could address those needs. Because I think what we are facing right now, this let's say our current let's say climate crisis. Let's maybe even take this small part of the equation. This is the situation where the business is leading the way, and the universities and the science should let's say try to catch up on this challenge and maybe support and deliver what is needed from the capacity building area from the university point of view. So obviously what is being offered, especially in Ukraine, in terms of existing curricula and bachelor or master programs in different areas, not only in economics and finance, where I'm coming from, but in other areas, it's already outdated and not up to date. So the business is looking for new, let's say for universities, let's put it that way, for people who are able not only to let's say to calculate financial flows, but also to understand the impact of environmental aspects and environmental issues on this calculation, which is already kind of challenging for economic for pure economic students. But even if you look at economic dimension, not on Ukraine but also the developed countries in Europe, you will see that they're still offering classic material in economics, and this is already a challenge because after this, let's say after completion of this program, students, they are facing a slightly different reality, and this is what I saw from my experience already 10 years ago. Started to teach German university. Actually, for the students from with economic background, that when they came to let's say to my course on economics of change, and they saw that what they have and they had is not what is happening on the ground, and they're not let's say not completely prepared or not fully prepared to those challenges, and to what the bankers, what the financial market is looking for, which means there is a huge need in a very close collaboration between business and the university, because universities has to understand what is expected on the labor market, and the students, they're well advanced, they're very open mind, and they can read what's happening. Even just going to the internet, they already see what's happening, what's demanded, and they coming back to the university, and they see the curricula, which is not exactly what expected from the business side. Only one particular example from the economics, but I think Bogdan and maybe Darіуш, you could also share maybe more examples from your let's say practice, where actually universities that they should work hard, so to speak, to meet those expectations. This is maybe to be short and not to take much time. I see already, Darіуш, you raised your hand.
Yes, can I say something? Okay, thank you very much. What I wanted to say and to ask you a question, maybe brainstorm about this, because I believe that sometimes if you take the example that I was talking about before, the circular economy, it's not a discipline in itself, it's a way of thinking. So, we need to address if you address this at the curricula, you have to actually think about various type of faculties. It's a legal issue, it's economic issue, it's a financial issue, it's a design issue. So we have to sort of square this in a way to think how to change the way we think. We will never train circular economy experts. Something like that doesn't exist. It's a multidisciplinary type of a change. So this is my sort of contribution. But I'm also asking you, Alexander, what do you think? How to tackle this particular issue that at this stage of the educational institution, you change how you think. And it needs to change not only at the higher education, it has to change at some other levels, more basic levels as well. Thank you.
Can I second you, Darіуш, here before I pass floor to Alexander? I have exact same observation, because we are talking currently about some specific sustainability for environmental courses for specific professions or jobs, but we have to remember that sustainability component has to be embedded into curriculum for every profession: engineers, doctors, chemists, you name it, because we were talking from the very first minutes of this discussion about the build forward better principle that you have enlightened us about. And in order to build forward better and to make our systems and our economy future-proof and resilient to the future threats and challenges, every person on his or her working place has to understand what those sustainability challenges and threats are and how to develop in each profession, how to embed this consideration into the products of each person's work. And I fully second the opinion that this component has to be included into general education program for school children, for students, for any profession. Over to you, Alexander.
Well, I completely agree with everything what has been already said. Maybe one small example from the economics, so to speak, how economists they became like environmental economists, because at some point of time they realized that solving environmental issues, it's not only about corporate social responsibility. It's not only about spending money for something good and not expecting some concrete result or impact on financial flows or financial results at the end. At some point of time, exactly, they realized that you can, for example, reduce CO2 emissions, you can certify it, and you can sell it. So it's already a concrete financial contribution or positive inflow to your balance sheet. And exactly, this is another example when a student comes to this course on economics of climate change and explains how they're calculating net present value for a company that produces energy from the coal or from something which is already like not existing anymore. Let's put it that way. So then, if you're not incorporating this CO2 price, then potentially this company has some positive perspectives. But if you do this, then you see that this company is already a past. So you don't have to even think about how to provide a credit or maybe provide them some financial support to this company. So it is exactly about the way of thinking. You only after for example, an economist starts to think about environmental problems not as an opportunity to make a new business model to solve this problem and make profit out of it. After this, the way of thinking changes, and then you can start let's say introducing additional elements of this sustainability story to the economists, to the financial sector. Actually, financial sector realized this very quickly already in 2004 when they introduced this ESG framework. So this was the starting point for the financial market when they realized that we can elaborate a huge palette of new services. We can make business out of it. And this was actually, even for me, a good sign that this story will continue, will exist and will last for decades.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to tell us more about your master's program on the sustainable finance?
Yeah, actually, this was a very old idea, and for me, it was very difficult to imagine that something similar could exist in Ukraine at the university due to several reasons. Firstly, because universities in Ukraine, I think they are very let's say old school institutions. It's very difficult to introduce something new, which is against a very say conventional way of thinking. This was the first challenge, but the second challenge was how to make sure that all this potential courses or elements will be covered, because professors at the university, they not all are able to let's say support this idea and offer something from their side. So that's why collaboration with Association of Sustainability Experts was maybe the key factor for me to understand that yes, we can do this. Now it's the right timing, the right time and the right place, and the right combination of the partners, and we could start offering for the students and for the practitioners this master, let's say this product. Let's call it as a product, because this master program is part of this offer from the Institute of Business Education at Kyiv National Economic University, which means, first of all, we are looking for people with some experience as a background, because they do know what they are looking for, and they could even share with us as professors at this program some practical insights, because I saw it already, and I think it's obvious. If you want to teach something, first you have to do this and see how it looks like, how it works, and only after this you are eligible. Let's say even let's put it even that way. You're eligible to go to the room and to start talking about this to a broader audience. So this was our idea, and I think we are in the right time and in the right place to offer this program to our attendees, so to speak. And this program will last 1.5 years, and during this 1.5 years, we will be able to explain what does it mean sustainable finance, how to prepare non-financial reports in accordance with the most let's say the well-known initiatives like GRI and upcoming standards, EU standards on financial reports. Also, we will be able to explain how climate insurance works, like and how our insurance companies could also support this movement and see again some concrete opportunities out of let's say related to this problem, not only the challenges but also how to prepare new insurance products or maybe new insurance solutions. Also, we will be trying to provide some concrete trainings, practical trainings on specific issues like sustainable business models, with concrete examples from the practice, and maybe this will give a concrete example and concrete information to our businesses, how they could transform their businesses and also support this movement. So just to be short, it's a completely new program for us. It's a new challenge. I think even after this first attempt, we will make some changes to the let's say to description of this program, because we will see what kind of information is demanded from the business side, and maybe something what is being offered right now. It's not exactly what they're expecting from us. So it will be a process, but anyway, we should start with something. So this will be the starting point.
Thank you very much, Alexander. This sounds really exciting, and I'm wishing you and your students the best of luck. I understand you're a pioneer of the Ukrainian educational market with your program, and to some extent you will be doing by trial and error, and maybe by the end of your course you will discover additional topics that need to be included given the ever-evolving regulatory and reporting framework in terms of sustainability and sustainable finance. Thank you very much. And we have come to an end of our our presentation, our panel. I would like to thank everyone who has joined as the panelists and as the listeners. I think it was an amazing and very rich discussion, full of insights, very inspiring. And as I said, we have taken notes, and we will share and disseminate this information with all the members of the Association of Sustainable Development Experts. So please check out our website. And just as a reminder, we are also looking to meet you at our International Sustainability Forum that will take place in Kiev on the 24th of October, and The Hague, the Netherlands, on the 25th of October. All the information is available on the website of ASDE, so please register and attend. Once again, thank you very much, everyone, and I'm looking forward to our future continued collaboration and new forums and meetings.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for your efforts. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for moderating and preparing everything. Evgenia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.